Okay, good morning, everyone. This is the stakeholder meeting to discuss the Office of Consumer Credit Commissioner's Regulated Lender Rule Review Amendments. My name is Matt Nance. I'm the OCCC's Deputy General Counsel, and I'm joined by a few members of the OCCC staff, including Compliance Coordinator Kimberly Bio, Assistant General Counsel Lori Hobbs, and our Senior Review Examiner William Purse. In the audience are General Counsel Michael Rigby, Financial Examiner Brian Arbogast, Legal Assistant Danielle Haynes, and Legal Intern Colin Wolf. At the entrance of the room, we have copies of our stakeholder meeting notice, which includes a copy of the rule amendments. A copy of the meeting notice is also available on the OCCC's webpage for recent and upcoming rules. Also at the entrance table, we have a sign-in sheet. If you aren't currently on our email stakeholder list, please provide your name and email address so that you'll receive any rulemaking notices for regulated lenders in the future. We're holding this meeting on GoToWebinar. Some of you might be listening on your phones, some may be watching on your computers, and some may be doing both. For those of you watching on your computer, there's a window where you can submit questions. If you have technical questions about using the webinar, you can type them in there and Kimberly will try to answer those. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and type those in at any time, and we'll be getting to those as well. And if you're on a computer with a mic, there's a function allowing you to raise your hand, and then we can let you make a comment verbally. For those of you here in person, we do have a table with a mic where you can come up and share your comments if you'd like. If you have shorter comments or questions, you can share them from your seat, town hall style. But keep in mind that if you do that, we'll need to repeat the comment so that those listening online can hear it. I want to thank everyone for coming to this meeting as well as listening online. Getting input from stakeholders is a really important part of our rulemaking process, and these meetings help us ensure that we can produce the best rules possible. With that, I'll turn things over to Lori to provide an overview of the rule review process and these amendments.
All right. Again, thank you for being here. My name is Lori Hobbs, and I'm one of the attorneys that drafts the rule amendments for the agency. I'm also the rules liaison for the OCCC. So we're organizing this meeting in three major parts. Part one is where we are now, an overview of the rule review process and purposes of these amendments. Part two will be a division-by-division breakdown of the rule changes. And part three will be time for additional questions and comments from stakeholders that may not have been addressed previously during the meeting. So first, I'd like to say a little bit about the process and timeline for these rules. Texas Government Code requires state agencies to review their rules every 4 years to make sure they should still exist and to make any necessary updates. This process is called rule review, and that's what these amendments are coming out of. As far as the timeline for the rules, we're accepting informal written pre-comments by 5 p.m. tomorrow, and we call those pre-comments because we accept them before the official comment period that comes later. You can email those to rule.comments@occc.texas.gov. We plan to propose the rules at the Finance Commission's August 17th meeting. The Commission will vote on whether to publish them for comment. There will be time where you can file official comments during the month of September. And then if things go according to schedule, the rules will be up for adoption at the Commission's October meeting and would be effective in early November. Next, I'll briefly review the purposes of the rules. As provided in the meeting notice, the four purposes of these rule amendments are to ensure consistency with current licensing, terminology, agency procedures, and streamlined processes, provide flexibility to licensees, modernize or remove obsolete language, and make technical corrections. So do we have any questions so far? Anyone online? All right, well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and move to part two, which is a breakdown of each division, and just kind of, I'm going to walk through the rules. Oh, sure. Uh-huh. Tell me what that timeline is. Is it every 4 calendar years? When was the last time? These rules were last reviewed in 2014, and so it's really the last time that they were reviewed, or generally because there's a specific notice requirement when you're going to review a chapter, the whole chapter. Other times we make amendments to particular rules in a chapter or subchapter and may not do a full-scale review. So generally, we count the rule review from the last time a full review was done of that chapter or subchapter. So these were last looked at as a whole for the regulated lenders in 2014. Okay. All right, so next I'm going to walk through the pre-comment draft in rule number order, describing the changes included in each division. I'll pause for questions periodically after groups of divisions, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions and comments after reviewing all of the amendments. The first group of changes we're going to discuss relate to definitions and licensing terminology. Beginning on page 1 of the pre-comment draft, Division 1 General Provisions includes changes to 83.102 concerning definitions. We're simply removing an unnecessary definition that's not used in the subchapter, and as a result, continuing on through pages 1 and 2, we're renumbering the remaining definitions. Moving on to Division 3, Application Procedures. This division includes several rule changes to ensure consistency with current agency procedures in 2 key licensing application rules, 83.302 concerning filing of new application, and 83.304 concerning change in form or proportionate ownership. On page 3, the changes to 83.302 begin with the use of the agency's acronym, OCCC, where it's more appropriate to refer to agency action as opposed to the commissioner specifically. Also on page 3, in 83.302 1A and 1B, we're streamlining the introductory wording and grammar to more closely track the online portal and to no longer refer to specific titles used on paper licensing forms. Additionally, changes to 83.302 1A III involve the deletion of unnecessary language, allowing for the electronic signature of an authorized individual of the applicant without reference to particular titles of the person signing. Moving on to page 4, you'll see a percentage change from 5% to 10% in several provisions. These amendments align the rule with current agency practice and provide consistency in disclosure of ownership for new applications with the transfer applications found in Rule 83.303. On pages 4 through 5, we're amending 83.302 1D in 3 ways. And these are similar changes that have been approved by the Finance Commission in other areas. The term registered agent would replace statutory agent. And these terms have been used synonymously in the past, but registered agent is used by the Secretary of State and has become the more common term. A natural person now requires simply a different address from the license location as opposed to the outdated requirement of a physical residential address. And a company secretary may submit certification identifying an agent that differs from the Secretary of State filing. Then there are several changes on pages 4 through 6 that continue with the updates to licensing terminology to align it with the online portal. But one thing I wanted to point out additionally toward the bottom of page 5, you'll see an amendment to 83.302 1JI regarding bank confirmations. And this update memorializes the longstanding OCCC licensing procedure to obtain bank confirmations if necessary on a new application. Moving on to page 7, toward the top of the page, we're updating 83.302 2AIV regarding fingerprinting. These amendments correspond to changes approved by the Finance Commission in the OCCC's other licensed areas and increase flexibility so that applicants will not need to resubmit if acceptable prints are on file. The remaining changes on page 7, continuing through the top of page 9, relate to updating entity documents required for new applications. These changes align the rule with the online portal, listing the required documents first, removing documents no longer required, and listing last documents to only be provided if requested by the agency. Toward the top of page 9, you'll see the addition of 83.302 2C VIII regarding formation document alternative. This language is similar to that approved in other areas by the Finance Commission and provides flexibility to licensees that may wish to submit this type of document. Moving on to 83.304 concerning change in form or proportionate ownership. The changes on page 9 improve the readability with revisions in grammar and formatting. Separate paragraphs have been created to distinguish the requirements for merger of a licensee, merger of a parent entity, and mergers beyond the parent level. At the top of page 10, the changes to 83-304 and Division 3 conclude with a corresponding revision that we previously discussed, which is updating the ownership change level from 5% to 10%. So do we have any questions regarding Divisions 1 and 3? Kimberly, do we have any comments from online? No? All right. Well, then we'll move on to the next group. With these two divisions, we're going to discuss a couple of license updates and changes to increase flexibility with deferments. On page 10 of the pre-comment draft, Division 4 license includes the following changes. There's a citation update to 83-404F2 regarding criminal history, and the repeal of Rule 83.408 concerning license reissuance. With the online portal, licensees print their own licenses, and the agency no longer issues license certificates. So 83.408, which provides for the return of paper license certificates, has become unnecessary. Division 5, interest charges on loans, begins at the bottom of page 10, with the key addition provided at the top of page 11. In 83-505, concerning deferment, new subsection J provides important amendments that increase flexibility for licensees during times of natural disasters. With recent hurricanes and floods, the agency has recognized the need for licensees to assist borrowers in these difficult situations. So in accordance with agency practice, the addition of 83-505J memorializes in the rule the deferment procedures that the agency has recently permitted during natural disasters. This disaster exception is similar to that approved by the Commission for our motor vehicle sales finance licensees and allows the licensee to deliver the deferment notice without obtaining the borrower's signature if the borrower resides in an area designated as a state of disaster and the deferment occurs before the state of disaster has been terminated. So do we have any questions regarding Divisions 4 and 5? Anyone online? No? Okay, well, moving right along, each division in this next group contains changes to one rule in each division, and these relate to interest charges and insurance. On page 11, Division 6, alternate charges for consumer loans, we're updating internal references throughout subsection F of 83-606 concerning maximum term and maximum installment account handling charge. And then on page 12, Division 7, interest and other charges on secondary mortgage loans, you'll see a correction in terminology to 83.707D2 concerning other fees. This rule currently uses the phrase finance charge where the intended phrase is contract rate. On pages 12 through 13, Division 9, insurance, there's several changes to modernize Rule 83.802 concerning authorized property insurance. Since 83-802 was adopted, the Texas Department of Insurance, TDI, does not fix or approve rates for property insurance, but rather has what is referred to as a file and use system. As a result, this terminology is being modernized throughout 83.802. The changes in subsection C continue the file and use terminology, and the rates provided by figure 83-802C are also being amended. The existing rates in the figure had not been updated for many years. These revised rates in the draft figure correspond to those recently accepted by TDI for dual interest personal property insurance. And then amended 83-802D maintains the requirement for licensees to file with the OCCC a copy of the relevant policy to be used for a rate that has not been filed with TDI. Do we have any questions on Divisions 6, 7, or 9? All right, hopefully everything is nice and clear. So we will move on to our last division, Division 10, which begins on page 13, duties and authority of authorized lenders. There's a few changes here to enhance record keeping and reporting for licensees. In 83.828.13, concerning files and records required for sub E and F lenders, we're streamlining the compliance file requirements to align with examinations issued through the online portal. We're also removing the requirement to maintain compliance bulletins, as those are now posted on the OCCC's website. On page 14, in 83.8291H, concerning files and records required for sub G lenders, we're updating the terminology to refer to the compliance file, as in the last rule, as opposed to the prior term of official correspondence file. Throughout 83.833B, you'll see a correction in terminology. This rule concerning correction of errors or violation currently uses the term retail buyer, where the intended term is borrower. And finally, at the bottom of page 14, Rule 83.835 concerning annual report, that includes changes in grammar and use of the agency's acronym to improve readability and consistency. So do we have any questions on Division 10? No? All right, well, with that, I will turn things back over to Matt.
We'd like to open things up now for any additional questions, comments, or feedback, or if there's another issue we didn't cover, if you just remembered a comment you wanted to make on a previous issue discussed, you can share those now as well. So if anyone, any of the folks present in the room have anything to share? Yes, Deborah?
I just have a general comment. In light of the sunset review and the almost, well, who knows what's going to happen in the commission, but we know there could possibly be lots of changes that affect the entire not just the frequency. It seems like we're going to be doing this again next summer. Have y'all talked about that at all?
Okay, so the question was that in light of the sunset process, it seems like we may be doing this again next summer, and have we discussed that? Lori, could you discuss that?
Well, I mean, I don't know if we've, how much in depth we've certainly discussed, there's always the possibility that with sunset there could be some other, changes that go through with the legislature. But, because these rules, again, were last reviewed in 2014 and are due and on schedule for review, we thought that, a lot of this cleanup would be, really good to get out of the way right now. And as with any session, a lot of times there are definitely rule changes that we have to, implement right after. So I don't know if,
Let me ask you this. If we do this again if we have to do 342 again, will that start the 4 years again? I guess it probably would if it's wholesale.
if we posted another rule review specifically, then we could do it that way. A lot of times we just might do just a separate freestanding amendment action as a result of legislative mandate to, here are the changes we have to make as a result of House Bill, Senate Bill, whatever. So,
yeah, generally our rule actions that implement legislation have been separate from rule review. The idea of rule review is that you kind of go through and make the technical changes to ensure that the rules remain up to date. And yeah, our practice with rulemaking that implements legislation has been that those are separate rule actions from rule review.
Generally, rule reviews
I don't know about the term non-substantive. I mean, if there is a substantive issue that needs to be addressed, we're interested in getting feedback about these amendments, and do lenders consider them to impose additional burdens or that kind of thing. So, but part of what we're trying to learn is what the effect of these rules is going to be. But in the past, we've included requirements that license that might have changed how licensees have to comply, but we're kind of interested in getting that feedback. Do we have any other questions from folks in the room or any from anyone online? Okay, well, I'll give about like 30 more seconds before we start wrapping up, see if anyone has any questions. Or if anyone's listening online and you have a question that's going to take you a while to type out, just send something to Kimberly, let her know. So I'll wait about 30 more seconds from now before we start wrapping up. Okay, it sounds like we don't have any further questions, so I'll go ahead and close. So as Lori said, as far as the timeline for the rules goes, we'll be accepting written informal pre-comments until 5 p.m. tomorrow, which is Friday, July 27th. You can email those to rule.comments@occc.texas.gov. Rule updates are available on our website, and we'll also be posting the audio of this meeting. I want to thank everyone, and we really appreciate your participation, as always.